You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to the show. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. I am Michael Glenn Moore. I am Scott's co-host. And today, Scott, we're going to talk a little bit about your book that's coming up. I think you said earlier that you've got 10 days and it'll be ready on Amazon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book, when it's going to be ready, and all that good stuff?
Great. Well, Michael, good to see you, and welcome to our guest, John. Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, as you all know or haven't heard yet, we created this to create a time of sharing with others and bringing experts in the field that really support I call them passionate stakeholders, to work on ways to share their experience, strength, and hope, and messaging that would hopefully resonate with others and get more involved. And we're still taping it, but one day we hope to get live and start taking phone calls. But Mike's contract's pretty binding, so we're going to have to really negotiate hard with Michael to get some flexibility going when we do that. So as you see behind me, I was on a Zoom call the other day, and someone says, "Are you trying to promote your book?" I said, "No, there's only 3 copies of it because I think it's important." Anyway, but I'm very excited. The opioid epidemic, obviously a little topical. If you don't think it is, it is. And I've been working on it for a couple of years, and we hope to be on pre-sale on Amazon by the 3rd week in April, and hard copies in my inventory by 1st of May, if all goes well. And I'm real excited about it. And it's one of those kind of books that, you're going to go to the index and you're going to find a chapter that makes sense. You're going to find a roadmap, a GPS, some way to identify with something there that might be able to help you or help a loved one get access to treatment. And when you hear the stories of what's going on with people today with overdosing, and then I'm going to be doing a segment here very soon about what's happening with people coming out of COVID, because some people, not some, a lot of people have gotten really embedded in their substance use disorders while at home, a lot of depression, behavioral health issues, and of course the overdose crisis is just skyrocketing. It's up 400% in San Diego, which is, a pretty good sized city, but 400% in 1 year. And that's just the preliminary numbers. And so it's a scary time. So if we can be a resource, and I always like to give out my number, don't hesitate to call or text me at 619-993-2738. And I'll do everything I can. If I can't help you, I'll send you over to John. He'll find somebody in his neighborhood. But there's always hope and help, and we hope you'll make the call. Remember those 3 hard words in the English language: I need help. They're tough ones to bring out, but if you can do it, there are people out there that want to help all over this country. So to our special guest today. So John, pronounce your last name. I want to get it right.
Sure. Dwoskin.
Dwoskin. John Dwoskin. When you Google this guy, and you'll get his information, he'll share it with us today. It's pretty impressive what he's done. But more importantly, what I found interesting, John, and I was interviewed by John a few weeks back, and he was a real professional, and my wife heard it, and she said, "Why did you talk so much?" And I said, "Well, it was an interview." She said, "But you're a soundbite expert." And I don't know what it was. Maybe I was nervous, but I did kind of ramble a little bit there.
Oh, I don't think so. I thought you were great.
Well, she says she's my best critic, and that's why I build this little 8x8 foot shed outside during the COVID, so I could spend some time alone. But John, I've read a lot of stuff on you, and I know you've had some interesting challenges in your life. But I'm going to let you to talk about it. But the reason that you're here today is your whole concept about thinking big and helping others. And I didn't even realize what a real estate mogul you were. My wife's in real estate. So it was interesting to read that. I know the company you worked with, just, because years ago I was in the multi-unit residential world as well. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give John the microphone for a couple minutes. We've got some questions. And one of the things I do, as you all know, is I ask my guests to submit 5 questions. And sometimes if their ego's a little big, they get a little resistant and say, I don't want to do that. But I like to ask people to tell us what they'd like us to ask them so we don't miss anything. Because if I get creative and I go sideways, I might ramble. And we only have a finite period of time here. So John, with that, tell everybody what you do, who you are, why you're here, and how they can get a hold of you. Then we'll share that again at the end, because I think what you're doing is awesome.
Well, thanks.
Welcome,
I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Scott, thanks so much. Michael, you too. Very simply, I'm a business coach, and I'm a business coach that has been in business. So I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everything in between. Work with owners of companies, C-level execs, managers, and salespeople. Sometimes in companies, I work with one of those, and sometimes I work in companies with all of those, different types of people. And I work with them to get unstuck, and I can see and hear things that they're missing and get them hyper-focused and provide them tools and ideas and action plans that are consistent with us setting a vision and then reverse engineering that vision to everyday tools. And so that's kind of a quick gist. I work with successful people who are stuck and get them unstuck. Typically people who don't have anybody to talk to or strategize with. And because I've been in business, just going back, I can kind of sum it up in a minute. I'm going to be 49 this year. When I was 23, I started one of the first internet companies. That was then 2 years later, after we built it to over 300 clients, about 24 team members. I led the sales, grew the sales team, was responsible for, business planning and things of that nature, holding people accountable. We sold that to a company called US Web, which was at the time the largest internet professional service firm in the world. I was a partner in that company for about 2 years. Once I left that, I got into commercial real estate, was a broker for 6 years, did well, then had the opportunity to take over my office, and of a company called Marcus and Millichap. And then the market crashed 6 weeks later. My office was just flattened, and grew that to one of the most profitable offices over the next 6 years, and grew it to about 45 agents. And then I was getting restless. I wanted to start my own business, which I'm doing now. Went in-house for a year to a company, a 50-year-old company, helped restructure that. And then I started my own business 6 years ago.
So you said something interesting. See if I can paraphrase it. You said, I want to get it right, about how you do. Oh, I know what it was. You said, I know about business because I've been in business. Because there's a lot of people that do a lot of marketing about, we can raise your ROI, improve your bottom line, expand your this. And, I get it all the time from digital people, clearly, we've seen your website, but your SEO is weak. And so tell me about that, because it sounds organic, but I think a lot of people miss that, because you've, through your anecdotal and your experiential years of doing something, you have something that a lot of people who just teach it, that saying that those who can't do can teach.
Yeah.
So I like the way you put that together. So tell me more about that, what that looks like when you're talking to people, because you've got that sound of confidence when you talk, but clearly you have been able to bring something to the entity that you're working with in a way that a lot of people can't. I remember real quick, I don't know who it was, it would be Robert Allen, I think, one of the big real estate guys 30 years ago, maybe 40 now, talked about it and did a study and said that 97% of the people that went to his seminars did nothing with it.
Yeah.
The 3%, I don't know if that number is still true or not, but the 3% that did really did well. So it's really, obviously resonating with others who are like-minded. But tell us more about what that means when you say, I can really teach it because I've actually done it. What's that mean to you?
So, some people will say to me, not very many. I've just had maybe a very small handful of people ask me, maybe 3 people that I can, are you a certified coach? And I say, no, I'm not. I don't have any certification. But what separates me is I'm a business coach that's been in business, started and sold a company, built other people's companies, restructured companies. When I was at Marcus and Millichap, I was on the CEO advisory committee. I was a national and regional trainer. And so, and I grew a company from my parents' basement and ultimately ended up selling it out of college. And so I've worn so many different hats as a business owner, as a business, an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, as a manager, and when I was 18 years old, my dad gave me a set of tape sets and he said, Jonathan, I want you to listen to these tapes, Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Success. I think you'll learn more from these than you will college. And I became addicted. And that's what actually led me on my path to wanting to do this for a living. And so I've been in the trenches. And so when I'm working with people, I've worn so many different hats in business that I understand from multiple perspectives what they're experiencing and what they're going through. And it's not just, cut and dry. Everything I do is custom to the person. My intuitive nature, my gut instinct, my intuitive nature, my emotional IQ, intuition is very, very high. So I can hear and see what most people are missing. It's very obvious to me. So I can get them very focused and on the right path consistently time after time. And so there's no checklist I have per person or system that I follow A to Z, because every person is different. And so I've always been in the business of growing human beings. And I self-study it as well as live it. It's easy for me to, and I'm doing what I love and what I'm passionate about. It's easy for me to really help accelerate somebody's growth and skill set, because I've been in the trenches.
So I guess the summary on the question I had is, just because someone goes to a 90-day course and gets a couple letters of the alphabet behind their name doesn't necessarily mean anything. And when you look at some of the coaching certification organizations, and I'm grandfathered in, and people, what does that mean? I go, I don't know, but it sounds good. And if you want to question me, go ahead, because there isn't really a big test, and there are a lot of different companies that do certification, and that's all they do. And then you find out what they do for a living. And most of them have either, lost a huge fortune or have found a different direction they want to go in. So they've opened their door to do something different. So, good for you and good on you. That's great.
One thing to add to that, Scott, is, one of the things I love about the podcast, and one of the things I love about a lot of the things I do, especially when I'm doing fireside chats, is hot seat coaching. And content creation, because that's what really separates. So I don't know, I'm not saying that somebody who is certified can't be a great coach, but a great coach is somebody who can ask great questions, listen, be very custom to each person they're working with. That's why I love hot seat coaching and doing fireside chats and keynotes, where I don't know what the questions are. I don't know what's coming my way. And then I can help people on the spot. And I also provide so much content on a day-to-day basis. I think if people are looking for a coach, that's what they want. They want to look for somebody who can, customize in a hot seat moment, and that is somebody who's providing original content, like I do every day, pretty much.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
just for the record, John, you didn't say that, I did. But what I meant by that is because you get certified, you still have to go out and practice what it is you were certified in. And, I can't remember the name of that guy that wrote that book, says 10,000 hours or something to get the skill sets. It takes time and error. I love that saying, fail frequently so you can succeed sooner. And that's the life experience that a lot of people, because coaching's been around obviously forever. And there's the coaching of the sports team, there's the coaching of a business. And then, I like crisis coaching, and I'm shifting more to family navigator because that's really where my niche is. Mm-hmm. And no one seems to really do that as a practice. And it takes years of just, making mistakes, bumping your head, getting the examples. And it's interesting. Our styles are very similar because I like that. And I think I have that intuitiveness as well when I work with people, because everyone wants to think they're different, and everybody is, but ultimately there are certain common denominators that make for a successful pattern and path. And until you understand those, and a lot of it's just having an open mind and accepting feedback from somebody else. You don't have to take it, but if you don't listen to it, it's real hard to really grow out of what you've done. So share a little bit about a few ways that companies or individuals can get unstuck, because you talk about unstuck, and I'd like to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, one thing a company can do to get unstuck is to realize where they're stuck, or realize that they're stuck and they're not really sure. And a couple ways for people to kind of begin to raise their awareness is kind of understanding, the managers that they have in place. That, people leave managers, not companies. And so a lot of times people will hire managers because they were good at their jobs, but they don't necessarily know how to manage people. And then many companies too many companies don't invest in training their managers how to manage people. And so that's a big element right there. And the blind spot of an owner or a C-level exec is they miss it a lot of times, or ignore it and feel like it will fix itself. And or that the people under the manager aren't the right people, when really those people just aren't being trained. And when you reverse engineer a lot of that even more, it's about having the proper training in place in a company to raise everybody up. And so, but that's a big place that I see people get stuck, because the owner or the C-level exec will report down to the manager, who has to report down to everybody they're managing. And if they don't know how to report and articulate and be an effective communicator, the message always gets diluted, changed, or all these different messages start getting sent to everybody they manage, and then everybody kind of, has to define it themselves. And so clear messaging is also a big place that they're stuck. And when all of that starts to happen, the culture gets affected. And so then distraction happens. So in really well-run companies, they have a very clear message. They have strong leadership. They have strong managers. They have they're training managers. They're doing a ton of training. And so that's one big piece that I see as is very obvious. Also, not having a business plan. It amazes me how many companies don't have business plans. Today, having a 10-year business plan can be tough, but a 3-year business plan is necessary. It's an absolute. Reverse engineer that 2 years and 1 year, and then understand how to reverse engineer that by quarter, by month, by week, even by day, if in many cases. And so everybody understands the clear messaging, the vision, the specific and measurable leading activities that everybody's responsible for. So there's a lot of vagueness going on in organizations, and the more specific and measurable they get to hold people accountable is critical in companies.
So that being said, what is the biggest obstacle for people?
Well, the biggest obstacle is, I'm going to go back to one of the things you said earlier. The biggest obstacle is being ready to be coached and doing the work. When I'm with clients, a typical client for me, for example, when a client comes on board, depending on the size or what's going on, there's an accelerated 3 to 10 hours of time we spend together where we really dive deep into getting things done. And then anywhere between 15 and 60 minutes a week. Right? It really depends. And so I have a lot of clients in 15 minutes or 30 minutes every single week. But if you kind of, zoom out of that, I'm with a client sometimes 30 minutes a week of their 50-hour week. Well, so we come up with great ideas and action plans and everything that they need to do, but they then have got to do the work, right? They've got to, and so I do my best to really not only, like when I work with my clients, I tape a lot of my sessions because it's all virtual. I take tons of notes so nothing gets lost in translation. I give them the blueprint for the week, but then they have to do the work. Now, my clients know, all of them, I return every call, text, email, same day. They can always call me in between sessions. I'm always accessible to all of them, always. But they have to do the work. And so where's the obstacle? Learning how to time manage, learning to time block, learning to be effective with your time. I actually was talking to a buddy of mine today. I was going for a walk and I was talking to him, and we're setting up a weekly tennis time. So I said, all right, well, let's kind of come up with the time. And, I think we're going to be playing on Tuesday mornings at 6:30 in the morning. And he said to me, you're such a scheduler, right? Is that the secret? Is that your secret sauce? I said, it is. That is my secret sauce. Like Monday through Friday, I am very scheduled. And I have to, because of how I run my day and what I do. But time blocking and running my calendar, everybody should be a student of their calendar. And if they're not, it's a big problem.
So how do you define thinking big? Because I know it's a big part of your platform. What does that mean? Somebody doesn't obviously thinking big to most people might be, well, I want to make a lot of money. I want to retire early. I own, it seems to be monetary. And so many people, it was curious as you're explaining, when people first come to you and say, hey, something's not working. I'm not making my 6-7 figures I wanted to make when I started out, and I've mortgaged my home, and now all I have is debt and people that are angry at me. So what does thinking big mean to you?
So a couple things. I'll put it very simply. Thinking big is doing small things every day that compound to get to your big. And your big is whatever your big goal is or your purpose is. Business coaching sometimes is, you're talking about people, oh, hey, I want to make a lot of money, this and the clients that work with me, they realize it is a business journey. It is an emotional journey. It is a spiritual journey, very much, Scott, like the work you do, except mine is just focused in business. And so you have to be ready for it. One of the things I do with my clients is I have a 7-page document that I go over with my clients that walks them through exactly how I work. Exactly. So they understand every element of every piece of what is done, down to how we work, the weekly sessions, how they can call me, how my billing works, frequently asked questions. So they understand, like, hey, I got to be ready to do the work, and I understand what's entailed. I find the more they understand and they can prep their mindsets and their mental capacity goes up, because there's no surprises. It was like when I was in real estate. You mentioned in real estate. In real estate, there's something called due diligence. After you put a property under contract, you do due diligence until you close. Well, one of the things I always did my best to in real estate was get all the content so the buyer would be able to have all the information needed, so there was no discovery, because it's discovery that kills the deal, right? Oh, nobody told me this, or you didn't provide this information, or the environmental company came up with this. That discovery is what causes all of the shockwaves. And so I find that the more I describe exactly what I do with my clients and take away any shock, it simulates how I want them coaching in the walls of their organization.
That makes sense to me. I got to carve out half an hour for you to talk to my wife, because I believe in it too. Every time that final inspection comes through, it's like, well, where was that leak before? No, that was there before, but the previous owner painted over it and the leak came again and the water spot's still there. You're right. I've heard her tell the stories, and I've heard it from realtors over and over again. So you don't have to worry about the discovery if the discovery is already taken care of.
Right.
So how can people manage and lead from their heart? It's one of your questions.
Yeah. Well, you got to get centered and realize what type of leader you are. Today, more than ever, it's really important to, and the word gets thrown out a lot, be authentic, but it's really important to be authentic. It's real important to lead people, to be an effective communicator, to have empathy, to have forgiveness, to be fair, but also give people a roadmap of keeping your vision in front of them, keeping their vision in front of them, holding them accountable to their leading and specific and measurable activities, not to be an authoritarian, but to hold people accountable. People need structure. People need accountability. People need framework. They need that. And so you don't have to micromanage, but you have to infuse all of that. And you have to be a really good listener. You have to ask questions, and you have to be, most importantly, accessible and approachable. Those are, and there's being that way, and then there's the energy of being that way. And so you need to, as a leader of an organization, you need to understand what the values of the organization are. Hopefully your personal values line up with that. And then you need to live those every day by keeping those front and center in how you move and how you speak and how you talk about the company and the vision of the company, and making sure that everybody knows you have their back and you're there to raise them up. Right. And that's where, when I talked earlier about training people and listening to people and putting people in the right seats, getting rid of toxic people, hiring the best of the best, training the best of the best, not worrying that they're going to leave. I want to know if people are going to leave. I want to look at an org chart and say, hey, these 3 people that I just hired, I know are probably only going to stay 3 years. So I'm going to have an upfront discussion with them and say, I know, you've shared with me you want to leave in 2 to 3 years. All I'm asking of you is give me your 150%. Tell me 6 months before you do it. Help me hire and train your replacement. And I'm going to still invest in you. And so that's the world we live in today, right? There's the 1920 form of leadership. When I see it in present day, it doesn't work. It may work. It may look like it's working because companies are making money and they're successful, but there's too many of the versions I'm talking about that are raising up. It's amazing. I spend a lot of time with clients in interviewing people, and many of the people that are interviewing are asking, what type of social impact do you have? Who are you socially, connected with? The interviewees are interviewing the companies to make sure that they have the heart and are in alignment with, who they are and how they're going to spend their time.
Yep. That's great. It's funny. My dad used to say, because we had a pretty good sized family business, and at one point, and he used to talk about bringing consultants in those days, because training the trainer and training people was always something we tried to do, but most of it was kind of organic and from the ground up, because there wasn't a lot of tools out there back in the in the early 50s and 60s. There were, but they were hard to get a hold of, and they were very expensive. And those people that were out there were learning, as everyone else was. But he used to say that consultants come in, they tell you what's wrong, and then they go away. To your point about, it's really up to the person you're talking to, because they're going to have to take the reins. They're going to have to ride the pony. So a question for you.
I will tell you this. I will share this where I am different than that. I just want to highlight this is I will go into a company and ask a lot of questions and share what's not working and what's wrong, but I will also provide them tools of things that will work. So I don't just say, hey, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. I'm a very solution-oriented person. I'm going to say, this isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. Here's a potential plan. Here are tools. Here's our, I have companies calling me all the time with my clients saying, hey, I need to have a tough conversation. I need to send this email. I need to let somebody go. I need to hire somebody. I need to do this. I need to do this. This whole system isn't working. And then we retool it. So when I go into a company, I can go in many ways like a COO or a CEO and really roll my sleeves up and start strategizing with them and coming up with ideas, solutions, and tools of change. They then have to do the work, but I dive in.
Yeah, and I think that philosophy is where personally, my opinion is that the term consultant shifted to coaching, because I just think there's so many different aspects. And, of course, when the internet highway was created and the virtual communication, and you have global touches right now. I remember the guy that, I know that ran a company. He used to talk about how he only wanted 1% of the world's market. And 1% of the marketplace, and everyone used to criticize, that's not enough. And he goes, no, I want 1% of the global market. And he got it. He actually built it over a 15-year period, and and one of those CPAP machines. And ResMed is the company. Great guy. I remember hearing him speak about 20 years ago, and it was just awesome. He irritated everybody in the room, but when he finished with that, byline, he said, and that's what I've done. I've gotten 1% of the global market. This is before the competitors started to come in. So last question that I want you to tell us about your book.
Yeah.
What should we ask you? And then Mike's got to have a question. What should we ask you? What should I ask you that I haven't asked you?
What's one thing? What's one thing I would tell my 18-year-old self? And that would be
buy a lottery ticket.
Enjoy the journey, right? Don't rush it, right? Just kind of slow down, and everything, the universe kind of puts in front of you, I think, what you're ready for. And I think for many, many years or decades, I was always in such a rush, it's like, and I find the more I'm not in a rush and the more I can just kind of, work really hard, work my plan, listen to my instincts, and then unplug a little bit more than I used to. I actually get further along. And so I just slow down and rush. Mentally don't rush. And I would have told myself to start meditating a lot earlier than I did, because you need to teach your brain and your nervous system and your mind to do nothing, right? So your body can just kind of refuel, and the power of breath is so critical that I wish I would have known that my younger self.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So tell us about your ebook, and then Mike's going to ask you a question. What's going on with your ebook and your book? I know you've got some information out there, and how can people get a hold of you as well, so they can get inspired and maybe touch base and see how they can move their life to not necessarily a better level, but a different level, which hopefully will get them to a better level if that's what they're seeking.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have two books. I have my book that I wrote, which I loved, which you can buy on Amazon or you can download for free on my website. That's at johndwoskin.com. And I have a 100-page ebook workbook that is also available to download for free on my website. johndwoskin.com. And the story is a business fable, a parable told about somebody who's stuck in business and what they do to get unstuck. And I had a blast writing it. I loved it. And the ebook is just a workbook of a lot of tools that you can use in your business planning and recruiting and vision setting and all of that. And to save paper, it's a PDF, so you don't have to print it out. And I'm always accessible on my cell phone, 248-535-7796. I return every call every day. And my website, johndwoskin.com. And my podcast, Think Business, is 5 days a week on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live, and then can be downloaded on all the platforms and on my website as well.
Awesome. Point of clarity before we go to Mike. You're offering people an opportunity to either buy it on Amazon or get it for free on your website?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just see how clever people are, because obviously if I have a choice, and free is my second favorite F word. I think I shared that with you, but that's great though. And anything that sometimes people think, oh, gee, it's free, they may not use it. So I like the idea of giving people an option, because why not?
Well,
okay.
And speaking of an option, I'll just tell you this. So to work with me, I offer all of my services for free I'm not all, but I have so much content on my website for free. Clients can then work with me one-on-one, right, and get access to me. But for those that can't afford one-on-one coaching with me, I have a coaching group that's $50 a month, and I do live coaching every Monday night, and and everything is put on a private Facebook group. And so I want to offer something that fits into everybody's budget, and I think that's really important for me.
Awesome. That's really gracious, really is, and inviting. And who's not going to want to take advantage of that? Michael, what's on your mind today?
John, I just want to ask, when you deal with companies, I know that you give solutions to their problems. Do you ever say something like, well, you've got an offer for your business, go ahead and take it, declare bankruptcy or what have you, or are you always positive focused with your businesses? And are there any businesses that you just won't work with?
Any business that is not in alignment with me, as far as, I think ethically, they've got to do things that are legal. They've got to do, things of that nature. I mean, or, that are, then I won't work with those types of companies. If I feel like it's out of alignment with something that, that isn't as ethical or something that I don't want to promote, then I won't take them on as a client. As far as companies declaring bankruptcy or should they sell, I mean, that's a big question. To me, I can never answer that question without rewinding and understanding what's going on and what's best for the business. It really has to do with the direction, the plan, and what can be done. What do they want to do and what needs to be done? Some companies may say, hey, if we don't infuse $1 million into the business, then the business is going to go bankrupt. Okay. But if they put $1 million in and they set a plan, then great things can happen. But the ownership have got to be on board and ready to, do everything it takes to accelerate the company. So I'll answer it this way. I never hold back my real thoughts of what I think is right for the company. I'm never worried about getting fired because I'm not part of the corporation. I don't need to appease anyone. My clients hire me for me to be me. But before I answer any question like that, I'm asking questions. I'm doing research. We're doing strategy. We're mapping things out, and I'm understanding the full landscape before I just answer a question.
Okay. Now you have
is that fair?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Do you have a quote for us today to end off the show?
Yeah. Success without fulfillment is failure. Tony Robbins. It's been a life-changing quote for me. I think success minus fulfillment, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I know it doesn't work for a lot of people. And I think finding fulfillment is the key to all success.